On that autumn afternoon, the old courthouse steps were bathed in golden hues as Tyler Matthews took a brief moment to catch his breath. He had just finished repairing the broken heating system inside. At 34, Tyler's hands were rough, worn from years of honest labor, and his kind heart had a way of drawing people in, much like the warmth of a fire. As he prepared to leave, a small voice broke through his thoughts. "Mister, could you help me?" Tyler glanced down and saw a little girl standing at the base of the stone steps. She wore a soft blue sweater, a pink knitted hat with a bright pom-pom, and clutched a teddy bear tightly to her chest. Though her face was pale, her eyes sparkled with an inner brightness that made Tyler smile. "Hello there, sweetheart," he said, setting down his toolbox. "I'm Tyler. What's your name?" "I'm Sophie," she answered softly but clearly. "I live up there with my grandma, but the elevator is broken again." Tyler looked up at the old apartment building beside the courthouse, familiar with it from many previous repairs. The elevator had been malfunctioning for months. "That's a lot of steps for little legs," Tyler observed with a gentle smile. Sophie nodded seriously, then met his gaze with an intensity that only a child could possess. "Mr. Tyler, if you carry me up the stairs, I'll tell you a secret. A very important secret." There was something in her voice that made Tyler pause. A wisdom beyond her years, mixed with a quiet sadness, tugged at his heart. "Sophie, I'll gladly help you up," Tyler said, kneeling to her level. "But you don't need to give me anything in return." Sophie shook her head firmly. "No, this secret is special. My grandma says that when someone helps you, you should always give something back." Tyler studied the little girl's determined expression. Something about her reminded him of his own daughter, who lived far away with her mother. The same kindness, the same earnest way of speaking. "All right, Sophie," he agreed with a smile. "I'll accept your offer." Tyler gathered his tools with one hand and gently lifted Sophie with the other. She was lighter than he expected, settling easily against his shoulder, trusting him completely. As they made their way up the stairs, Sophie pointed out the little details along the way, like the window where Mrs. Chen always had flowers or the door where Mr. Peterson played his violin every evening. "You know everyone in this building," Tyler commented as they reached the third floor. "Grandma says it's important to notice people," Sophie replied, her voice serious. "She says everyone has a story worth knowing." When they reached the fourth floor, Sophie directed him to apartment 4B. The door opened before they could knock, and a woman in her 70s, with silver hair and worried eyes, appeared. "Sophie, there you are," she exclaimed, her voice flooded with relief. Then noticing Tyler, she added, "Oh, hello. I'm Eleanor, Sophie's grandmother." "Tyler Matthews," he replied, carefully setting Sophie down. "I helped Sophie up the stairs. The elevator seems to be having more trouble." Eleanor's expression softened with gratitude. "That was very kind of you. Sophie's been struggling with some health issues, and the stairs are difficult for her." Sophie tugged on Tyler's jacket. "I promised you a secret, remember?" Tyler knelt beside her, smiling. "I remember, Sophie. What's your secret?" Sophie looked at her grandmother, who nodded reassuringly. Sophie leaned close to Tyler and whispered, "The secret is that grown-ups forget the most important thing." Tyler raised an eyebrow, genuinely curious. "What's that?" Sophie's eyes grew serious. "They forget that love isn't something you keep. Love is something you give away, and the more you give away, the more you have." Tyler felt a shift in his chest. This small girl, facing challenges he could hardly imagine, had just shared a truth that many adults spend their lives trying to learn. "Where did you learn that, Sophie?" he asked softly. "From being sick," she replied matter-of-factly. "When you're sick, people show you love in lots of ways. Grandma takes care of me every day. The doctor is always gentle. Even strangers like you help me up the stairs. It made me understand that love grows when you share it." Eleanor placed a hand on Sophie's shoulder, her voice full of warmth. "Sophie has been teaching me this lesson too. Even when she's not feeling well, she always finds ways to help others." Over the following weeks, Tyler often thought about Sophie's secret. He paid more attention to the small acts of kindness around him, visiting Sophie and Eleanor regularly, fixing things around their apartment, and sharing stories from his work. One afternoon, Sophie was having a particularly hard day. She was exhausted and pale, but when Tyler arrived, her face lit up with joy. "Tyler, I've been waiting for you," she said from her spot on the couch. "Grandma made cookies, and I saved you 3. As they sat together, sharing cookies, Tyler noticed how Sophie always thought of others, even when she was struggling. She asked about his day, remembered details about his other jobs, and had a kind word for everyone she met. "Sophie," Tyler said one afternoon, "you've taught me something really important." "What's that?" she asked, glancing up from the puzzle they were working on. "You've shown me that the best way to fix things isn't always with tools. Sometimes the best repairs happen when we fix each other's hearts with kindness." Sophie smiled, the same bright smile that had first captured his attention on those courthouse steps. "That's exactly right, Tyler. And the wonderful thing is that when you fix someone else's heart, yours gets fixed too." 3 months later, Tyler received wonderful news. Sophie's treatment had been a success, and she was getting stronger each day. To celebrate, Eleanor invited him to a special dinner. As they gathered around the small kitchen table, Sophie raised a glass of milk in a toast. "To Tyler, who carried me up the stairs and learned my secret." Tyler raised his glass, looking at the remarkable little girl, who had changed his understanding of what it truly means to be wealthy. "To Sophie, who taught me that the richest people aren't the ones who have the most, but those who give the most." Eleanor wiped away a tear. "And to the family we've become, not through blood, but through love." As Tyler prepared to leave later that evening, Sophie handed him a drawing she had made. It depicted 2 figures on a staircase, one man carrying a little girl, with hearts floating around them. "This is us," she said, her voice filled with joy. "Sharing love and making it grow." Tyler carefully folded the drawing and tucked it into his wallet. A reminder of the day a 4-year-old girl had taught him the most important lesson of all. "Thank you, Sophie," he said, giving her a gentle hug. "Your secret changed everything." Sophie hugged him back with all her small strength. "That's what secrets are for, Tyler. To make the world a little bit better." As Tyler walked down the courthouse steps that evening, the same steps where their friendship had begun, he understood that some encounters change us forever. Wisdom can come from the most unexpected teachers, and sometimes the greatest gifts are hidden in the smallest of packages. The elevator in Sophie's building was finally fixed the following week, but Tyler continued to visit regularly. Some connections, he had learned, were not about convenience or necessity. They were about recognizing that we all need each other and that love, when shared freely, always returns multiplied. Sophie had been right about her secret. Love wasn't meant to be hoarded or saved. It was meant to be given away, knowing that in the giving, both hearts would be made richer.